Hi, this is Simon Moon from Simon Moon Music, and it's part 8 in my series of tutorials on how to produce music with Bitwig Studio. Today I would like to add some more elements to the track from scratch we're doing, and we're focusing on transitions, noise sweeps, I don't know, maybe impacts. Let's see how far we get today. First of all, let's listen to what we've done so far. There's one thing I did in the meantime in order to speed up the process. Maybe you remember that last time I introduced another sound, which is this one. All I did was I pitched this part down 1 octave, added a specific delay, which is this psycho delay here, and you can see that I applied it to basically the psyche plug only. Let's listen to this real quick. So this is without, and this is with this delay. It just smears the sound a little bit more across the stereo spectrum, and well, this is basically it. So that should be all. Of course, I also added a couple of additional MIDI parts to make use of this new sound, and this is what it sounds like. Okay, and this, I think, is a good starting point for our first transition. Let's listen to this second transition. Well, it's not really a transition, there is none actually. Just in order to make it a little bit more clear that this probably won't work in a song. So there is no transition at all, and so this comes as a very unpleasant surprise here. So we'll need to work on this as well, but let me start simply by adding some transition elements in here. So there should be some kind of build-up intention, and there are a couple of ways to do this. I would try to introduce a noise sweep, which over time will add more and more high frequency action over these 2 bars here, bar 23 and 24. Plus maybe, I think, let me just try something. There is a pad we're not using here. Let me just solo this and see how it goes. Let me start here. I simply copy these 2 because there is a pad-like sound going on already, so the chords should be perfect, I guess. But let's listen to what it sounds like. Okay, so this is the original sound that is already part of what we were listening to. And now I want this sound to come in. And again, we will do a little trick that we've already applied in other places in this track. I put in a filter here So this is the Bitwig filter. I set cutoff to basically nothing. So this is a low pass filter. Now you shouldn't be able to hear anything. And if I open up, maybe the resonance is a bit too aggressive here. Okay, and I want to automate this. So there's filter cutoff, and I want this to be audible from the beginning, but not too much. Okay, that should do. And now we open it up. Okay, so that should do. I also have to make sure that this filter isn't interacting with anything that comes before or behind. So that should work. And now let's listen to this, but I think it needs a little more touch-ups. Okay, and now let me try something. I want this to have a couple of attacks throughout these two bars. So this is the first one, another attack here. So if I solo this, you'll be able to hear it. Okay, and I simply copy this over. And at the same time increasing the frequency in which these attacks happen. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, and now we leave it at that. That's what it sounds like. In order for this to work, I think we should... where is our attack? So this is this pad here. It's a polysynth. And there must be something like an attack macro here. Where is it? Pitch, sync, sync, sync. Ah, probably in here. Attack. So you'll notice as soon as I tweak this knob, the attack changes here. And the attack obviously is too long. So as soon as we increase the frequency in which we introduce, make this these chords hit, they simply get lost. So I reduce attack a little bit more. And now I can hear more of that. Again, with a higher attack, it just gets lost. Okay, doesn't sound too bad. Let's listen to it in context. To our noise sweep. As you remember, in one of our FM4 instances, we used noise as part of the sound. So there is a Bitwig synth which already comes with a noise generator. And that's what I want to make use of today. And let's simply listen to this real quick. So what we need is noise. So we make this noise output directly. We don't hear anything, almost nothing, because the cutoff here was set to low. So this is the noise. I reduce the Q factor, which emphasizes specific frequencies, the cutoff frequency here. So if I turn this all the way up, it's almost like a tuned sound. Another thing you notice is that the sound over time becomes softer, and we don't want this to happen. So we increase the sustain level, and as a consequence the sound stays as it is. Increase release a bit, so that it doesn't simply stop as soon as I let go of my key. It lingers on a little and becomes softer. Okay, this is our noise. We don't need all of that here. And now we need a MIDI part. And in this MIDI section here, I simply introduce, I think it doesn't matter what pitch I'm using, so this should be the same no matter where I hit. Well, it's just noise after all. And that doesn't exactly sound awesome, but now we will modulate the sound, and in order to do that, I will also be wanting to modulate this cutoff here and the Q factor. In order to do this, I make use of these macro knobs. So if I click here and I tweak cutoff and go back into operations mode. Oh, sorry, I want to solo this. See, you can hear that the cutoff is actually reducing the sound to its lowest frequencies. But in order for this not to happen in such a drastic way, I reduce this modulation amount here. Okay, and obviously we should start with the filter completely open. Okay, you get the idea. Also, I want to add a little bit of drive so that this cuts a little bit better through the mix later on. Okay, and another thing I would like to automate is the Q factor here. So let's see what it sounds like. Okay, we can actually go extremely high here and then see how far we use it in the track. That's maybe a little too high. We don't need that. Okay, now to automation. First of all, one thing I would like to do is I would also like to automate additional parameters. And in order to do that, I will need the other effects, which actually include the parameters I want to automate, in the same container. So I could either make the effects part of the node effects here, or the effects which is actually included in this container. Another thing, just for fun and just to show you that this is possible, I include the whole thing in another container, and this container I'm using is a chain. So as soon as I add what we've just done to this chain, I can simply use this to manipulate the cutoff filter in here. So what I'm doing right now, I think I want this as it's open. Well, never mind. Let's just do it. So, very exact same thing happens. And I do the same thing here. I make this knob, tweak the other macro knob. Okay, so that works. But I want to have other things happening in here. And in order to do that, I will simply use LFO modulation and show you what I mean. Okay, now there's this LFO thing here. Well, first of all, let's simply start, I think, by already bringing in this noise sweep by opening our cutoff filter here. So let me add this automation lane, and we start with this thing all the way closed and open it up over time like this. So let's see what this sounds like. Cool. And another thing, I want to add Q over time. So I tweak this macro knob, and now you see here it says Q. That macro knob, that's part of this chain here. That's why it says chain on top of it. I click the plus sign to add it as an automation lane, and then I simply draw in a line which introduces more and more of the Q factor over time, and get a little bit drastic in the end, and then reduce this again. Another thing I would like to do is maybe make this a little bit more pronounced. And a good trick here in Bitwig is if you select a couple of automation points, then you see on the left in this information pane, you see a couple of pieces of information on these events, and I can simply increase value here, and then you can see them change over up and down, move up and down. Okay, so let me see what this sounds like. Now in context. Okay, that doesn't sound too interesting at the moment, but what we can do as well is add some more movement based on this LFO modulation. And the trick I want to apply is pretty much the same as with this lead here. You might remember in this lead sounds we had an LFO modulation, and I want to apply something pretty similar to our new effect here. Oh, let me call this noise sweep. Makes more sense, I guess. So there is this LFO modulator in here already, and I want to sync it with the time beat, and okay, 1/4. So this is a quarter note at the moment. That's okay. And if I apply this to the amplitude of the sound, to the volume of the noise, it sounds like this. I'm using the tool here because it offers me this amplitude parameter here. I click this plus minus sign in order for this to happen only in one direction, and I start modulating it. So I solo the noise, maybe start here. That's interesting. Where's the sound gone? Did I solo anything in here? No. Ah, sorry about that. I have to start here because the note starts here. Okay, and now let's turn on modulation again. And it starts pumping, and that's why I want to call this little gadget here the pumper. Another thing I would like to modulate is I would like to use this second modulation source here, LFO2, and modulate not only amplitude a little bit, but also the panning. But I want this to be much faster, or twice the pace at which this first LFO works. And now you can start to hear that we're getting somewhere. Let's hear to listen to this in context. Okay. I reduce the speed here one more time. Maybe it's better. Half note. Okay, another interesting aspect now is that we can modulate the modulation speed here for the second LFO as well. And let me see whether this works. So I simply introduce modulation here, and let's see if it works. No idea. Okay. That's cool. So I create a new automation lane for this thing. Let's call this thing LFO speed. Okay. I think this has to go really fast, close to the end. Maybe not that much. Okay. do for now. Another thing I want to happen right after this uprising effect, I want something that takes the audience a bit down after this happens. So we use the same noise sweep here, but with, first of all, with a cutoff that will be closing down, but at the same time with another LFO modulation. So first of all, let me just, so we have this LFO speed up here, and I reduce this to 0. So everything starts perfectly well aligned here. And I'm introducing another LFO. Another LFO modulator, to be precise. And I call this thing a gator, because what this is supposed to sound like is like a transgate. And I want the same thing. I use a tool here where I can modulate the amplitude, and I apply this first LFO to amplitude here. And okay, let's see what it sounds like. Of course, I need a sound as well. And I guess that's not the best idea ever. To have the same modulation going on, because I want this to be all the way open at the beginning. Okay, I need to make this time synced. Set this to 1/8. Okay, and let me see, maybe also use the second one to smooth this first one out a bit. So this is already time synced, and let me just see what this is going to sound like. Not too bad. I also want to pan a little bit here. Maybe one thing I should show you before we go on is this noise sweep by default is actually just solo, is mono, totally mono. You can see this if I use a, let's use the ozone imager. So you can see it's mono, it's just moving in space in the stereo spectrum because we're applying this pan here. And as a consequence, it starts to move left to right. If I undo this modulation, and we watch this one more time. Sorry. Also have to undo this one here. You can see that the sound, the noise is actually 100% mono. So there is no stereo information whatsoever included. Only if we use these modulators to pan the whole sound around, it introduces a difference between the left and the right channel simply by panning it. Okay, so I take out the imager again. And another thing I want to happen is this first modulation. I want this to stop as soon as the second modulation sets in. So the pumper is actually supposed to do nothing as soon as the gator starts. So as a consequence, I simply click this on-off button here, and then it appears on top of our automation lanes. Click the plus sign, and now you can see I can simply turn on the pumper for this part and turn it off afterwards. I also want it to be off in the beginning, and I want to do the opposite thing with the gator. So I click here, automation lane appears, and I want this to be off here, to be on in this in the second 4-bar section. And then let's listen to what it sounds like. Now this turns off, and the other one turns on. Turns me on. Okay, anything else we could do here? I guess let's listen to this in context real quick. One thing we can do and should do, and that is, just a second, make the cutoff go down here over time. And also the Q factor. Sorry, gotta start here. That's probably too fast. Like this maybe. Still a bit too fast. Okay, the whole thing one more time, and then we leave it at that. Okay, and in order to give to spread up this noise sound in the stereo spectrum even more, I will give it some psycho delay as well. It sounds much smoother, I guess. Okay, let's clean up a little bit more here. I want the Psyche plug to go into a plug group. And I want the noise sweep to go into a another group, which I call effects. There should be, well, in my tracks I usually make this gray or a little bit brighter probably, and make this noise sweep disappear here. Some more tweaking. Okay, maybe reduce this whole thing in volume a little bit. Okay, that'll do. So what have we done today? There are two elements, transition elements in the track right now. The first is this noise sweep we've just built, and the other thing is that we introduced this other pad sound here during the transition to these next 8 bars. And well, this is it for today. Next time I think we should talk about staging and stereo spacing a little bit. That's where we actually will place our individual instruments more to the front, more to the back, more to the left or to the right, so they can be more distinctly audible when needed. And well, that's the subject for the next tutorial. For today, this is it. I hope you liked it. If you did, follow me on YouTube and have a nice day. Bye bye.